Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back in lady business. Hosted by Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department, a management strategy and law firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their wealth, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. Jennifer interviews entrepreneurial women who have done it all, who will be sharing their secrets on all things business, especially as a woman. These highly successful women will share strategies and insights, including what not to do and what it takes to win. And now, here's your host, Jennifer Justice.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. On this show today, we have the wonderful Sarah Lacy. She is the CEO and founder of ChairmanMe. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to see you.
I'm so excited to see you too. Since obviously I haven't seen you in person in a very long time, you being on the West Coast, me on the East, but also, once in a while on a Zoom, and it still has been far too long. So thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
So let's start off by first, there's a lot to tell about your past, and there's a lot of juicy tidbits I'm sure that everyone would like to know. But first, let's start with what ChairmanMe is, and then we can talk about how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, you may know as Chairman Mom. We actually started out as Chairman Mom because much like JJ, I'm one of those people who think being a working mom is something that makes you doubly badass, not pulls at the seams. I feel like being a founder and CEO of my own company, chairman of my own company, which actually most women, even who are the CEO, don't get to be the chairman. I felt like that was something I was incredibly, incredibly proud of. And I felt like being a mom was something I was incredibly proud of. And so Chairman Mom was like the two titles that I relished the most, that I'd worked and fought for the most. And I wanted to, put them out there and brag about my professional accomplishments and brag about my gorgeous children. And we wanted to basically reclaim how powerful being a working mom is. What we noticed in building this community, so we wanted to build a community is basically the opposite of the rest of the internet for working women. But really, who we cared about were women like you. We cared about the women, no offense, we don't care about your boss. We don't, your children are awesome, but we're not here for your children. We're not here for your pets or your spouse. We're here for you. So most things with mom in the name really want to serve your spouse or your kids. And you're kind of this conduit by which we're reaching and making their lives better.
Yeah. Or you're just making your life easier because the vacuum's better, the cleaning supplies are better. So you can, have more time for your kids or husband.
Right. Or here's a way you can spend all this extra money and time getting your kids in camps. It's that's not serving me. And so we noticed this weird disconnect where even the first year we were in business, 30% of our audience weren't moms. And as we grew and got bigger and bigger, it was as much as 40% of our audience weren't moms, because how sad is this? Most things that have mom in the name are really devoted to your kids and not you. Yeah. And turns out men, non-binary folks, women who've just made a life decision to never have children, they also were fighting the patriarchy. They also needed a non-toxic community. So we rebranded as ChairmanMe, really just to reflect what we were, because we kept having people kind of apologetically being I love what you do, but I don't have children. Can I be here? And we were yes, queen. By the way, no one has ever said to me, I'm not a chairman of my own company. Can I join? We have so much baggage around the word mom still. And, we gotta still work on that problem. But basically we created this incredible community where you could come and ask questions about the things that you were the most worried about, that maybe you didn't have anyone else to talk to. And you could do so anonymously. We're 4 years into business, thousands and thousands and thousands of question and answer threads. We've never had a single flagged toxic comment. We do not have trolls on the platform. It's really an incredible, lovely community. But when the pandemic hit, obviously our core audience was just colossally let down by society and completely screwed over. So we went really deep with our audience and we were what do y'all need? What do y'all need? And so we started getting into this, building these online courses, where we find the best people on earth And we give you, I mean, a lot of these are like coaches. They're, we have a course in negotiation coming up. So there's this incredible woman who has decades of research on how women can negotiate effectively without falling into the double bind and having backlash. Like, we will find the best people on earth who typically charge thousands of dollars an hour because they're of your school and you should get paid your full worth. And you'll get 6 to 8 weeks of their time and coaching and an incredible community environment, which you can do at your own pace. And it's like our courses are between $600 and like $1,800. So like really driving a lot of the value of like what the 1% of career women have access to, sort of for everyone.
Right.
And that like really unlocked a lot of growth for us. So like in 2020, we 15x revenue grew because women who weren't at the very, very, very top of the food chain, who didn't have massive corporate budgets to pay for everything they needed to level up, or were those few women who were sort of led into the old boys network and had all the answers, suddenly had access to like the keys to the queendom, if you will.
Right.
So now I just build incredible online courses, and we watch them change women's lives every month.
Yeah. Amazing. So it's a community of women for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And non-binary people as well. And it's all about your career, and it's all highlighting and up-leveling and how you can, as internally in like a patriarchal system and externally as like a founder and building your own. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, and the only thing I would say is a little bit different is it's not only about your career, because so much of what makes like our core value is we think every woman should have the right to live the life she wants to live. And that is sadly like a radical statement and belief in this world and in this country. I mean, we don't even let women have autonomy over their own bodies. Like, that's dramatic. So like the fact that we can have our own lives. And so, in order to do that, there's a lot of things at work. If you're a founder, I mean, we know about 3% of venture capital goes to women. The odds get even worse. There's a lot of things in the professional world that are going to thwart you, but there's a lot of things in your family. There's a lot of things in your dynamic, maybe your church, maybe your community, maybe where you grew up. So a lot of our courses are really also about unpacking all of the life stuff, because it's really that combination of work and life where women have their dreams derailed. So for instance, like, this are 2 courses in January. We're doing this incredible course on negotiation with this expert who's incredible. We're also doing this course called Finding Flow, which is about non-judgmental, non-diet culture fitness for the joy of moving, not for fitting into the male gaze. And it's totally about like rethinking all of the toxic messages around fitness. We have another course in February that's about nutrition. It's like, let's learn to love food again. Let's heal this rift with food. And it's like, why does that matter for us living our full lives? Because like, we need to turn off all of the internalized depression, self-hate narratives that are taking us out. So it's really like work life, all of it. We want you to be happy and whole on both sides of it. Like, we have a course we do twice a year that's about like witchcraft and domestic arts. It's like just really unlocking that power that we've been like gaslit out of as women for centuries. So we do stuff that's all across the board of work and life.
I love it. And you've been around for 4 years? It's launched 4 years ago?
Something
already?
like that. Yeah. I think when you're in the middle of these things, you're like, when did it start? How old are my children?
Right.
Yeah, I think we started about 4 years ago. And, but it was really in the pandemic where like the growth like really exploded. And now we're just kind of trying to keep up.
I love it. Amazing. Well, you're a great woman for this, having been through so much in your past as far as discrimination against you as a woman. So let's get a little bit more into how you got here and like what you did before this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to Silicon Valley in my early 20s when the .com bubble was peaking, and had an incredible 20 plus year career as an investigative journalist that wove through being a reporter at Business Week, writing 3 books, traveling the world and uncovering entrepreneurship stories throughout Africa, South America, all over the place, and then helping build TechCrunch, selling that. And then when I was giving birth to my first child, Ariana Huffington took away my job promotion that was supposed to be happening at TechCrunch. So I took my baby and went up and down Sand Hill Road and raised $2.5 million to start Pando, which was a very aggressive, sort of insider, but also aggressive investigative journalism company that covered Silicon Valley sort of from the inside out, and all the things that people didn't want to talk about. Because why do you not want to talk about them? Because there's billions of dollars at stake. And when you start exposing this stuff, there's shit tons of threats. There's personal threats, death threats, legal threats. It is not a comfortable life. So I did that.
Especially with a newborn.
Yeah. And then it's like I raised money, and then 6 months later got pregnant with my second, and then got divorced. So single mom doing that. It was a time to remember, but it was incredible. And this was really at the beginning. We're still in this wave where people were very enamored with tech and thought tech could do no wrong. It was a very different time than we're in now. And Pando was really one of the leading voices, not necessarily in saying all tech is bad. I think all binaries are just bullshit. But in saying hey, let's look at some of the human toll that's coming out of this disruption that everyone's so excited about. And, that was really uncomfortable and it was really radical, but we had a massive impact on the world. So we kind of finally got to a point where the narrative had changed. Everyone was kind of covering that story. We were now at a point where it was where it frankly had become just not satisfying to be a journalist. It's a really, really hard job. If you're a woman, it's even harder because they really try to destroy you in different ways. And, I was already bought in on the idea of, okay, no one's going to like me. My job is to constantly be hated. If you're doing your job well as a journalist, right, everyone hates you. And so it's okay, I'm okay with not making a lot of money. I'm okay with being hated. I'm okay with working, 80-hour weeks and running all over the place and trying to dig up the truth and digging through documents. All that I was okay with. But what changed with journalism, it is the Trump era, but the Trumpism is also deeply in the libertarian wing of Silicon Valley. So we've seen this. It's not just politics, but this idea of, no, I reject those facts. And so I found increasingly I'm putting myself out there. I'm risking my family's safety. I'm risking my health in some cases. I'm not making any money to expose and bring the truth to people because I believe in that as a journalist. And then either I'm preaching to the choir or there's people who are fake news, don't care, don't want to read it. And I was okay, then I'm out. And so I just hit a point where I was okay, we've kind of done the things we wanted to do. We've told the stories we wanted to tell. Everyone else has sort of now jumped on the bandwagon of let's question tech. Great, we're out. Closed Pando, done with journalism, something I thought I'd never be done with. And then meantime, I'd started having these dinners in my house every month with female founders and female VCs. And this was when a lot of the Me Too movement stuff was coming out. So we were all it was a lot of the behind the scenes conversations that were leading to a lot of things coming out, but also support for women were happening in my dining room every month. And I was seeing the power of women really getting together and having those connections. And I was why can't we scale this online? Why does this still have to happen in dining rooms, and we just really believed that you could build a non-toxic community for women online, which was a contrarian idea. People were no, women are so bitchy and so catty and they're going to hate each other. But that was all engineered into the internet. Facebook did that because it wanted us to fight so it could sell us more Pampers. We don't wake up in the morning wanting to tear each other down. Men have engineered that into the software so that it happens. And so I was just done with journalism, but then I was how do I scale dinner parties in my dining room? Because that was what was giving me a lot of value and frankly driving more change than continuing to try to, risk my kids' life exposing stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, look, that's been in films, women tearing each other down, competing for men to the reality shows and all of that. So forever, it's this big thing. Well, women, they just want to turn. That's not true. That's not true at all. And
the degree it is true, it's because we've been baited into it. I mean, if you work at a company and there's a signal sent from day one, there's going to be one female executive, then it does turn zero sum, but it doesn't have to be zero sum.
Exactly. Right. When there's one, if you can see it, you can be it. You see that one office that a woman is, and you think that's the only office that she can be in, And like I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and a man, and he was like, I just don't think of it in terms of men versus women. I said, that's the luxury of you that you have. You don't have to think, you don't have to think of it that way, because you aren't the one that's the only and the other. And you have no idea, you know? So yeah. Okay. So then you had all of these. I remember you were having these like dinners, and I was super jealous. I didn't live on that coast to be like, I want to be in that room. And then from there you birthed Chairman Mom, and, or Chairman Me rather, Chairman Mom to Chairman Me. And so you raised money for that, right?
I did. Yeah. And it was so funny. For a long time, and this is why I think, it's not just only women get ahead. It's diversity within teams is what pushes you, right? Because I do think, I had the benefit of like my longtime business partner and also now life partner, Paul, is a white man. And so I remember when we were talking about birthing, then Chairman Mom, now Chairman Me. And I was like, you know what, let's not raise capital. I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't have to go pitch it. There's, I pissed off so many people in Silicon Valley. I was like, I don't want to even deal with this anymore. And then I was just like, let's just bootstrap it. Let's just whatever. And, we didn't really have money. And he was like, Sarah, he's like, first of all, this is a massive, massive opportunity. And so people are going to be thrilled to invest. Second of all, you literally are going to put yourself in years of financial hardship because you don't want to every 6 weeks have a phone call with a board. He was like, step back and think about what you're doing. And I was like, and this is the thing. I'm not saying that's the only reason we raised 2% of venture capital, but that internal gaslighting, which is all from, I don't know, are they going to say no? Am I going to be good enough? Are they going to be mean in the board meetings? I'm putting myself out there. It's like, there's so much gaslighting, even for someone like me who had raised capital a billion times, knew people out here. And so fortunately, I had, a white man at my side. It was like, hey, let's think like a white man, go get the money. We've raised, millions in capital. We've had incredibly supportive investors. And I'm happy to talk more about the gender dynamics there, because by and large, it's male VCs who've kept us in business, not female VCs.
Right.
We have one incredible female VC on our board, Ann Lai from Bullpen Capital, who's a massive exception, but we would not be here if it had not been for men.
Right. And why do you think that is?
There's a lot of good reasons, and there's a lot of understandable reasons, and there's a lot of like sad reasons. So I think a lot of it is, if you look at, there's kind of been this wishful thinking / lie that's been perpetuated that the way to change the amount of money going to women means more women need to be writing checks. And there was some early research that showed that if women were at venture funds, they did fund more women as a rule. So there was reason to think this might be the case. Unfortunately, it hasn't. And in fact, the more women who have gone into those roles, the less money that has gone for women. So what's happening? Look at the roles the women are going in at these firms. Either they're a partner who is the new partner who has not a chip on the shoulder, because that sounds negative, but is coming in having to prove a lot. Because let's say you're Sequoia Capital and Mike Moritz just went out and said, oh, we don't want to hire women because we don't want to lower the bar. And then there was a massive backlash, and suddenly Sequoia's got to hire a woman. How do you think the partners view that woman coming in there?
Exactly.
How do you think, and
not to perform at 130%. And
exactly. So it's like if you think about the nature of venture capital, these are sometimes 5 men who are controlling billions in assets. So you're the one female voice that maybe some people at that firm kind of feel like was forced on them by their LPs or the media. And so what's your role as that one? First of all, you don't have as much swagger power to force a deal through. Every deal you do is going to be scrutinized because you need 2 years to prove you're good at this game. It takes about that long to know if you're good as a VC. And now everyone's coming to you with the female deals, which are like yoga pants and leggings, which are not the companies that wind up being career makers. Those are Google, Facebook, tech companies. And so you feel this war within yourself of you want to support women, but you also want to do the big deals because you also know odds are if you support a woman, she's not going to get as much follow-on capital. You're going to have to carry her further. Do you have the juice in your partnership to do that? You are hurting your immediate returns by only backing women. So if you're a woman who's already come into a role and you feel like you're on fragile footing, you're on thin ice within your partnership, there's a lot of expectation on you. The self-interested thing would be not to fund women. So women are taking the self-interested path is the answer to your question, or they're running seed funds, and seed funds are awesome, but seed is the easiest round to raise as a woman, because a seed investor is just going to do a bunch of $20,000 checks. And so they're looking for reasons to say yes. Anything beyond a seed, those investors are doing, I don't know, 4, 6, 10 deals a year, and they're seeing thousands. So they're looking for every reason to say no. So there is such a fall off between seed and the next round. And if all the LPs are like, let's fund this female fund, and they're putting it all in seed, they're setting up a lot of women to raise a seed deal, to quit their jobs, to start something. And there is no capital once they've found product market fit and want to grow. And so that's the gulf where these companies are all dying.
Right. I mean, it's even hard though for women to get seed fund rounding in a lot of cases though too. It
is, but it's disproportionately easier than any other round.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, 2%, like there's nothing. If you look at any other stats other than the wealth gap for a white man and a Black woman, which Sally Krawcheck was just telling me it's a penny. A Black woman has a penny of wealth for a white man. Like there's such a difference between pay gap and wealth gap.
Yeah.
But other than that, what can you even think of in our society where there is a 98% gender tax? And that's for white women looking to raise capital.
Yeah.
Like it is staggering. Again, talking to Sally Krawcheck, master of the universe in terms of finance. Every single time I talk to her, she is struggling to raise capital.
Oh, I know. She's always struggling to raise money, which is ridiculous. Like she was on the cover of like magazines as like, and a finance guru and like crazy. Yeah.
And by the way, if she was not building Ellevest, if she was building a company that was for men, she wouldn't be struggling to raise money.
Probably not.
It's the combination of running a business as a woman and running a business for women. Because I will tell you, when I raise money for Pando, literally investigative journalism never returns capital. Not a good category to invest in. And I went to investors and said, like, look, we're not going to be doing listicles. We're not going to, like, you are probably not going to see a return because like this is real journalism, and real journalism has generally not returned capital in the digital age. I was very upfront, so much money from so many billionaires because they wanted it to exist, because they wanted to read Pando. They wanted it to exist. So they put money and they were happy to take a flyer on it.
Right.
ChairmanMe, very different situation. Did they want the patriarchy destroyed? Did they want their wife to start questioning why she's not living her best life? We literally had one of my mentors, I don't know if I'll say who she is, Amy Arrett, who runs Madison Reed, who I just adore, who's like one of my mentors as a woman raising capital. She was looking through our deck at one point and said, oh my God, you need to take this screenshot of someone asking a question about how to arrange their assets and get legal protection before asking for a divorce. She's like, you need to take that out of your slide deck because there's no man who will ever give you a check if you're helping women solve that problem. And I was like, wow, you have like out cynicaled me.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. That's so sad.
I say actively, many people actively want me to fail for personal reasons, but also want our mission to fail. So it's like, we had even a tax on us in raising capital beyond just, yoga pants, which like I'm wearing yoga pants. I love yoga pants. I'm not, denigrating anyone who builds a company around yoga pants, but that fits into the white male gaze. That is what a white male VC who decides he's going to fund a woman. He's like, oh, that makes sense to me. Women love yoga pants. I love women when women wear yoga pants. They don't want women to tear down the patriarchy.
No, of course not. If they wanted us to be a part of the patriarchy, we would be. They're in power. They would, they would cede power. That's never happening.
No.
So wait, how long did it take you then ultimately to raise the money?
Well, so that, again, the seed round was easy. The seed round was a couple of weeks. It was oversubscribed. It's been everything since then. And I will say we were, so there's this weird thing in Silicon Valley, and this has been happening ever since I'm here. The name of the rounds constantly changes. And I think that they do this to just make people feel like dumbasses if they're not in the game. Yeah. So like you used to get an angel round, and then you got your Series A. And like Series A is like, institutional capital first round. That used to be the first round when I moved here. Now, fast forward 20 years later, you have your pre-seed round, you have your seed round, you have your seed extension. Then you have your seed plus, and then you have your A. So your A is the 5th round you raise. And the only reason I get so wonky is because like I can answer that question and tell you, but we've literally had 4 rounds with seed in them. We would be a B or a C in what venture capital was years ago. It's completely stupid. But the simplicity's sake, getting that pre-seed round, I made 2 phone calls. It was oversubscribed. Getting our seed round, did a bunch of meetings. Mostly, we got a lot of yeses, but a lot of smaller money yeses. And then one VC, Tim Connors, who's incredible, who was at Sequoia and USVP for many years, and then was like, I hate what venture capital is turning into, started his own fund. He is the only GP. It's 10x oversubscribed. He's been incredibly successful. It won't take more money because he likes the way he invests. He does 1 deal a quarter, takes 20% and stays on the board until the company goes public. So he is very like how venture capital used to be done. He said yes, he oversubscribed our round. And then Charles Hudson had led our seed round of Precursor. And so Tim Connors and Charles Hudson, literally after our seed round, our second seed round, that was when it got hard.
Yeah.
That was when it got hard. And it was like the 2 of them just kept writing us checks. They just kept writing us checks because they believed in the mission, they believed in our team, and they knew we had a really good business. It just wasn't getting rewarded in the market because of the mission and because of what our team looked like. And so they went way over pro rata, continuing to write us checks and keep us in business. And that's the difference in why we're still sitting here and why most female founded companies fail is we had 2 male investors who had a lot of juice in their own partnerships and deep pockets and were able to do that. Now, after we grew like 15x in the pandemic, suddenly much easier to raise capital. That's when we raised our round that and Bullpen led, I imagine in another year, 18 months, we'll sort of raise the big honking A that is ego to everyone. And then it'll be oversubscribed because we've been through the hard part. And then people, once you get to the hard part as a woman, they're like, oh, this is the female founded deal I can invest in. But the problem is every VC knows, female or male, there's no FOMO. You will always struggle.
Yeah.
Sally Krawcheck struggles. You will always struggle. So they will not put money in until it's a sure thing because they know they can get in later and they don't care about overpaying. The reason a male founded deal gets, these hot valuations before they're a sure thing is they might miss out in the future, but women will always struggle to raise money. So they'll wait and wait and wait. And then the company dies. So then what does the VC think? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't fund that. It was a shit deal. Why are women such bad entrepreneurs? So then it reinforces this pattern recognition lizard brain thing that keeps more women out of it. It's such a fucked up cycle.
So, I mean, we started the podcast to give people like great advice so they can do it. So what, what's the answer? I mean, because you're having all this issue and yes, you're in Silicon Valley, so many people like there, even me being in New York and the network I have, I don't know anybody if I wanted to raise money, what, and it was hard for you. So what's the answer? How do we change?
I think it's a few things. I think, the scariest piece of advice I hear young women say and giving one another is to network with women and build these communities of women and only go to women. I think if you think about the fact that the vast majority of capital is controlled by men, you are putting yourself in a hole from day one. And so I think, being very gender blind in terms of who your ideal investors are is just survival. I mean, because again, if I'd only gone to women, out of business. So I think, and just like kind of, thinking outside the box and trying to think about, who you think, I mean, there's so much I can say about fundraising, but the reason I went, so Tim Connors, who has been our biggest and most deep pocketed investor. Tim Connors is not known for funding things like Chairman Mom. He does some consumer, but he does a lot of enterprise deals. And I remember saying to Charles, what do you think about Tim Connors? And I kind of knew him somewhat, but I didn't know him like really, really well. And he was like, Tim's great, but I don't see how this is a Tim deal. And I was like, you know what I've noticed? Every time I post something about toxic masculinity, he's the first white male VC to like it or share it. And it was really that insight. It was like, there's something about Tim Connors that also wants to dismantle the patriarchy.
Right.
And it was that insight. And then it's like asking. And so I pinged him and was like, hey, I want to talk to you about this company I'm building. He got really excited about it. And here we are today. And it's like, so it's like, just And that was like something I noticed over Facebook, right? That wasn't even someone that I knew really well. So I think some of it is just like cueing into those insights. I've had so many women ask me, if you're trying to raise money for something that's essentially a cause, like, I have a friend who's building like a wealth management for investing in like female fund managers. Like, if you're trying to do something that's like changing the makeup of society for the better, do you use guilt and shame to try to get white male money in the door? And I don't think you use guilt and shame, but I think you find the people who also want it to be better and want ways to use their privilege to make the world better. And I think you make that case to them that they're going to be part of the solution if they do this. So I think some of it is finding those people.
And then if they don't, then you use the guilt and shame, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because
there's always a time
like,
for the guilt and shame.
But it's like,
there's a course that we teach called Getting to Aha that's basically about using neuroscience to get people to say yes to things. And if you think about what that does, it's all really about using storytelling and honing in on what is going to make that person say yes. And what's going to make that person say yes is probably not a single metric in your deck. What's going to make that person say yes is that yes is going to make them feel better about themselves and make them feel like they're living up to their ideals.
Right.
And so I think it's just, you got to understand the psychology. You've got to understand the strategy, because it's like, we don't have the advantage of just being a dude from Stanford who walks in and gets the deal. So you've got to bring like all of these other weapons and tools to the fight. But for me, I always tell women not to be afraid of to be polarizing. I raised money because I'd spent 20 years being incredibly polarizing. If I had been like the nice, good girl, I wouldn't have gotten a cent of money. People knew I was willing to take on fights. People knew my name. People knew I had a brand. People knew I wasn't going to back down. And there are so many billions of dollars who would love for me to fail and people who will never invest in me. But on the flip side, there's so many Tims and Charles and Anns and lots of other people who are like, no, I know what you stand for, and I know how hard you're going to work, and I know how hard you're going to push. And we need more people like you. We just got an investor who's a billionaire who does not do angel investing or seed investing at all. And I wish I could tell you who it is. I cannot say it because he's like, I've said no to people for the last 10 years. And if people know I invested in you, they're all going to come back and yell at me, because he's just said, I don't do it. I don't do it. I don't do it. I'm using my wealth for other things. But this person literally invested in us because he was like, I hate Silicon Valley. I hate the culture of Silicon Valley as much as I've benefited from it. And we need people like you tearing down the wall, changing the pattern, creating opportunities, and being that person you can see for other people. That money is out there. Those people are out there. You got to find them. And the clues are everywhere. Look on social media. Look at what they're liking. Look at what they're sharing. Well, use that to get that commitment out of them.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. I mean, I think, going back to so you should open up all of your raising money to everybody, and at the same time, you have things like ChairmanMe to have your tribe of women to help give you advice and see, what I mean, and give you that confidence in knowing what you can do and what, things have worked and might not work, et cetera. So, I mean, I think it's a combination, right?
You need your equivalent of the old boys network. Like, men don't do this alone. Men have a ton of help. And this is one thing I love that you said the first time I ever talked to you. And I think about it all the time. I repeat this all the time. Like, you are one of those people, it's like, I can't imagine you ever having like an insecure day. Like, you're such a baller. You're so convinced of your own wealth. You're so amazing. But, we've all had the same gaslighting. And I love that, like, when you had your kids, you were like, I might not be good at advocating for myself, but I'm an incredible lawyer who's great at advocating for my clients, and my clients are now my children, and I'm going to go. And it's like, that's the thing, whether you're finding that motivation from your kids, whether it's your cause, like the reason I'm going to go raise money and do whatever, because it's like, literally every single day, we are changing thousands of women's lives by building this company. And so it's like, I want to keep changing. I know the faces of the women I'm going to let down if we go out of business. So whether it's your mission, your customers, your children, your best friend, it's like, we need those people around us to constantly cut through that self-gaslighting, which is like the patriarchy's most effective weapon of you telling yourself you're not worth it or stop pushing or whatever it is. And it's 90% of like it being like the difference in how you talk to a friend versus how you talk to yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember like running into people from the music industry and they're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Because it's like COVID, everything's been quiet. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing, I'm basically, I have a, strategy, business development consulting firm and a law firm, but I only represent women. They're like, oh, how's that working out? Like, the music industry is so gross. It's so antiquated. It is like, it makes like finance look like, ChairmanMe. And it's just so backwards. I was like, oh my God, but that's what it takes. It does take these allies because when you are working in something with just women, I will say like, there's a lot of days where the confidence is like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I cannot believe how we're treated, being an advocate for women against employers and watching them now at this time, like firing women because they're pregnant or saying, you know what, you don't need to raise, your husband makes money. Like, this is now, these things happen. I'm telling you. They happen. And if you complain about wanting more money, they will fire you. And if you do not have the, whatever that strength to challenge them and go after them and hire a litigator, you'll accept that. Yeah. And that's what sucks, because sometimes we just don't have the capacity from a myriad of reasons. So it is really hard. So, I mean, I know, and I applaud you. We're now approaching, 3 years at the Justice Department, and it can be exhausting and hard, but like, we're doing it for a bigger purpose. We're doing it for our kids, not only our girls, but our boys,
Well, and it's like every win one of your clients has is so disproportionately powerful because like, it's not just about that person having more money and everyone else saying they have that more money and other people being like, oh, that could be me. And other men being like, oh, this person deserves this. Like, it's not just the ripple effects of that one person, but it's like the more wealth we control, the better. The more like, it's just, we need like, and we need to be in this mindset of like abundance and not zero sum.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the biggest, and I have brought her up 3 times now, so she's going to appear. But the biggest thing that like Sally and I talked about when we caught up a few weeks ago is this, what's the biggest frustration I have as a female founder, biggest frustration, worse than venture capital, worse than the hours, worse than any other shit. Women will not invest in themselves. It is so hard.
Oh my God, it's mine too.
To sell to women to invest in this negotiation course we're teaching. Literally, the woman gets paid $1,000 an hour and on average gets women a 30% increase in salary. We will give you full credit on a future course if that doesn't happen to you. This is as de-risked as possible. And you're like getting 12 weeks of her time for the equivalent of 1 hour of her time in her coaching business, which she's booked out. You can't even get her anymore. Like, it is like, men would die for this. Men would be falling all over themselves to give you the money for this. I know, because when I was like running things like Pando and TechCrunch, we sold things that were far less value in terms of events, online or offline, that for way more, men would fall all over themselves to pay for it. Women, it's like, I have to send 40 marketing emails for a woman to be like, okay, I'm worth it. And I talked to Sally about this. I was like, how do you do it? Because I struggle. My biggest challenge is getting women to invest in themselves. It doesn't matter how many testimonials I show you. It doesn't matter how much results I show you. And it drives me, in fighting that internal gaslighting is the hardest thing I do. And she had the same thing. And she's like, no, we had to build, if you look at the Ellevest app, it's like, do you want a baby? Do you want to travel? Do you want to own a business? She's like, we had to get goals focused with them, because just investing in your retirement and not being penniless and not being dependent on a man, she's like, women are like, I'll get to it later. I don't want to do it now. I'm not worth it. Hardest thing we face.
And no, I look, I know it. like women hire me to negotiate for them. Cause my biggest advice is don't negotiate for yourself, hire a woman. Like, I hire somebody to do it for you because I will also get you 30% more, you know? And I know that because I've done it over my career. And in some cases, like 2.5 times somebody's salary.
Oh, I'm sure, because the higher up you get, like the level of women who are bringing you in, they like the higher you get up, the bigger the delta. So it's like you could probably routinely get people 70% more.
And so it's shocking to me. I still have like friends that I know are taking C-suite jobs and they have not hired an attorney, including one of their close friends, to negotiate it for them. And my point is, if somebody's hiring you and you don't hire and you're like in a C-suite position and you don't hire somebody to negotiate that for you, do you think that they really think that you're going to negotiate for them? They've already kind of written you off as somebody that they can do whatever they want with. You know, it's like, you're not going to negotiate yourself, then I can do whatever I want. Like, you've got to set the tone when you go in and say, like,
that is so huge. That is so huge.
Yes.
There's this incredible story that I think about all the time that I heard from Cyrus, the guy who started ZocDoc. I don't know if you know him. He's another New Yorker. Anyway, Jeff Bezos was on his board, and this was like slightly less crazy, you know, bald lifter Jeff Bezos. This is slightly more normal era of Jeff Bezos, before the penis rocket. So anyway, Bezos had told this incredible story when he was trying to like close a hire, right? And he had said, I basically, like, he tried to court this guy. The guy was like, no, I'm going to actually go to Pepsi. He called him, or Coke, because they flew to Atlanta on the story. He called him and was like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to join Amazon. I'm going to Coke. It's done. And basically like, what can I do to change your mind? What can I do? What can I do? And he's like, if the deal's done, the deal's done. It's going to be announced in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow. Like, Bezos gets on his, I don't know, penis airplane, then flies to Atlanta, sits down with the guy and is like, no, we're going to make this happen. I'm going to brute force this. And he's like, but it's being announced in the Journal. He's like, I can call the Journal. I'm Jeff Bezos. He basically breaks down everything this guy has said about why he cannot take the job at Amazon and go back on his word. And so the guy finally capitulates and says yes. So Jeff Bezos gets back on his penis airplane and like breathes a sigh of relief on his way to Seattle, and then suddenly is stricken with horror because he's like, if that guy was able to be broken down in 12 hours, how is he ever going to be effective working for me? And then he was just like, oh my God, why I wasted all that time. This guy shouldn't work for me. And it's like, even though it's a male on male aggro story, it is this exactly what you're saying. They judge your audition is how you negotiate and how you go after that job.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone's ever negotiating to buy us, or I'm ever in line for a big corporate job, I'm 1,000% you're my first phone call, because let's bring in the big guns. Let's bring in Beyonce and Jay-Z's lawyer. Like, come on.
I love it. Oh my God. So, I know now I'm all like amped up for the day. All right. I know we can't have you, and I've already taken up more time. So as you know, everybody, thank you so much for all this advice. It's been amazing. What is one piece of bad advice that you have gotten in your life?
God, there's so much. I would say probably the biggest thing is to like be likable. Yeah. I think that both implicitly and explicitly, like, we're told to be likable.
Oh,
and
all
like,
the time.
well, people want people who are easy to get along with. This is sales. This is the, to me, it's such bullshit. There's so much power in being polarizing as a woman. And we have a whole like workshop that we do on what it means to be polarizing, because being polarizing is not being an asshole. It's a very specific thing. And it's rooted in being consistent, insistent, and persistent. It's rooted in what you stand for. It's rooted in like what's backed up. So it's not just you run around being a jerk. That's not being polarizing. But being polarizing, I think, is a superpower for women. And I talk to women who are like, oh, but like, if I'm like that, then someone's not going to write me the check because I'm a troublemaker. And I'm like, they were never going to write you the check. Yeah. They were going to string you along for 6 weeks and waste your time. Yeah. It is so efficient for me to raise capital because I know the handful of billionaires and firms who will not give me money. And so we just sidestep that shit and I go to everyone else. It is an automatic filter. And the other people who haven't written me off, when I have tried my hardest to get them to hate me, those people really believe in me, because that's the flip side of being polarizing. It's an efficient way to weed out the people who are never going to support you, but the people who are left are your like diehard fans. So
Yeah.
I think all women need to be more polarizing and be open to it. And they don't want us to be. Like, there's so much self-gaslighting, industry gaslighting, friend gaslighting. Oh my gosh, there was like a young founder who started coming to the dinners in my house, and all of her friends, she was very in the YC community, and all of her friends were like, I don't know if you should hang out with Sarah Lacy. She's really dangerous. She's really dangerous. People aren't going to want to be near you. And it's like, Sarah Lacy's raising millions of dollars. Like, own it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's good advice too. I mean, you just talked about people who are polarizing, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and every
There's
billionaire
no
man.
one in Silicon Valley getting ahead by being unpolarizing.
Yeah.
No one. Yeah. And it's not to say there's not other risks if you're a woman doing it or a person of color. There absolutely are. So it's like, be smart about it. Like, get your group of women who've been there and done that. Get your mentors, stand for something, do it in a smart way. I think about every single thing I tweet because I had decades of ballywag trolling my social media accounts, making shit up to try to discredit me. Like, I've had everyone come at me. And so I get the gender bind that you're in, but I'm still telling you, if I had been the nice girl that got along with everyone, I wouldn't have raised a dime of venture capital.
Yeah. Well, that has been very enlightening. Thank you so much.
What is your worst piece of advice? I feel like I should.
Oh my God. Mine was to put my head down and just do the work.
Oh, yeah. Pay your dues. Of course.
So then you can go get all the glory, which they tried to do. And then I was like, I don't think so. Thank you so much. If people want to join, find you, how do they do
just
that?
go to chairmanme.com. And if anyone takes a look and sees a course they want to have more information, just email Sarah at ChairmanMe. Happy to give you more information. Happy to give like a special Friends of JJ discount. Just reach out to me. Like, we're all in this together. We're all going to break down the patriarchy one brick at a time. It feels like it's not possible, but it's super possible.
Oh, it's possible if we're all doing it. The majority of us are all doing it. It's possible.
Yeah, we got to stop like voting for Trump, but yeah. Like, white women need to get their head up, but yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I know you enjoyed this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.